Hello, good afternoon. My name is Jane Bailey. I'm from Reward Risk Management Limited, and I'm a specialist reward consultant. I work with companies all across the UK and the world, helping them to understand what they can do to better improve their pay and benefits and get their staff more engaged with their businesses. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Sim Ilyas from Great Western Credit Union to talk about the issue of how we can retain talent through financial well-being. Financial well-being is a subject that's very much in the forefront of people's minds at the moment as we move through the changes that we've been through recently with COVID and the financial issues that people are experiencing with the economic crisis. And this is something that's also very dear to my heart from the perspective of what can we do to better our employees' lives, because employees are, the biggest thing in our pay bill ever. Today I've got some questions that I'm going to ask Sim, but let me just first introduce you to Sim properly, because Sim is a business consultant at Great Western Credit Union, and he focuses on their Money at Work initiative. He's been working in various areas of personal finance for more than 2 decades, which I think means he started when he was 6.5. And he lives in Bristol, and one day he might fulfill his dream of starting a pizza restaurant.
What a kind introduction. Thank you, Jane. And thanks for inviting me along today.
Yeah, it's good. Very kind of you to come along today too. This is something that was really important for us to do. I'm just going to ask you a very open question at the start, and something that just sets the theme for everybody, because I think it's fairly crucial that we come from the level playing field, and that is, what do we mean by the term financial well-being?
Financial well-being is a complicated one, because the answer to that question and the definition of it can be different according to who you ask, according to what time of day it is and what day you encounter them on. That being said, one of the definitions that I really like about financial well-being is that it's based on somebody being able to weather financial shocks, having the freedom to make the choices that will allow them to enjoy life, and keeping a regular monitor of their personal situation as far as their personal finances is concerned. The other aspect of a definition around financial well-being, or how to quantify it, can be akin to looking at physical well-being and emotional well-being as well. It's multifaceted. There's no single silver bullet answer. There's not something that you can do once a week or once a month that's going to solve that problem for you or get you over the finish line. In fact, in essence, there is no finish line. It's just requirement of a constant amount of effort, a drip amount of consistent graft into the idea that your financial well-being is important and does require regular attention. That can be as straightforward as staying on top of the financial statements or the credit card bills and different things that arrive in the post. That can be regularly monitoring what's coming into and going out of your bank account. That can be logging into your bank account on a regular basis. That can be ensuring that your standing orders and direct debits are up to date. So there are lots and lots of things that make it up if you really start kind of drilling down into what it looks like. But equally, there isn't, I suppose, a straightforward definition. If you think about it in terms of what makes up your emotional and physical well-being, though, you're probably on the right track.
So in terms of things we can do, it's similar to the sort of developing the good habits that we are encouraged to develop by the government for other things like our mental health and our physical health, so the 5 fruits a day and the hours walking during lockdown.
You're absolutely on the right track there. I mean, the kinds of things that are going to make a difference are akin to the different things that are associated with good physical health, for example. So elevating your heartbeat for 30 minutes every day, or staying on top of your nutrition by having the 5 portions of fruit and veg per day, those kinds of things. And there are definite parallels. Habits is a very popular one at the moment, because I think it's tuning into something that resonates with a lot of people. So some of the work that we've done recently with organizations like Triodos, they've asked for specific guidance around the different things that people can immediately do to bring about differences in the way that they feel about their money, the confidence that they feel about running their daily finances. And we've come up with some great recommendations, based on the things that I've already referenced, but other things like putting a budget together. Some people have never done that in their lives. Budgeting is a great thing to do, because it just really allows you to get a kind of roadmap of where you are. Look at your income, all the combined elements of your income, look at your daily expenditure, the amount of money it costs to run your household, figure out from that what your disposable income looks like, and then that figure is a really kind of powerful number to have in your head about what kind of freedom you've got to do other things. If you're going to do one thing today to improve your financial well-being, is put together a budget.
Right. And I guess, and I have the habit of then looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Coming back to the point that I made before, you can't just put together a budget once and think, great, I've done it now. That's that box ticked. It doesn't work like that, because your finances change all the time. There's unexpected items of expenditure. Some days you're going to spend more than other days. Some months the gas bill is going to be much higher. That's probably quite a pertinent one at the moment.
Yeah, the issues of, how do we deal with all the expenditure that we weren't expecting. £100 a tank of petrol is a fairly scary concept at the moment. And I guess from the perspective of financial well-being, what are the benefits? And businesses ask me this all the time when I'm talking to them about how they maximise staff income, and I use financial well-being as one of those things that I say to them, you need to start to talk to staff about how they maximise their income by better financial well-being. And they say, well, what's the benefit? Why would we as an organisation want to do that? What's in it for the organisation in terms of improving?
I think organisations that are tuned into the notion of the well-being of their staff are probably doing themselves a great deal of service rather than disservice for the future. This notion that you want to retain talent, it's associated with lots of very, very positive things: consistency on productivity, reductions in absenteeism, reductions in recruitment and training costs, and all these other things as well. But if you've got an employer who has a notion that emotional and physical well-being is really important, because happy staff are going to be productive staff, are going to be loyal staff, then also you've got to acknowledge that alongside those two things of emotional and physical well-being is this notion of financial well-being, which is never been more important. There have been times in everyone's life when they've worried about putting food on the table, keeping the roof over your head. Financial worries are often reported as the most significant source of stress in people's lives, alongside work-life balance, relationships, looking after the kids and all that kind of stuff. But consistently in those types of polls, financial well-being comes out as the biggest source of stress, and I think we can all reflect on times in our lives when that's been the case. For an employer to acknowledge that is a direct kind of acceptance that it is a really significant thing in most people's lives, especially if you're looking at people who don't earn a lot of money in comparison to the national average. Those people are the ones that are more susceptible to things that can happen when a financial shock hits. So when the washing machine breaks down, or the MOT costs are higher that time around, or where there is regular things in the press about the cost of living going up and inflationary increases and cost of fuel increasing as well, those people are much more susceptible to succumbing to things that result in much more significant problems, having to miss payments or falling into arrears, or sometimes even going without. Employers acknowledging that, and employers giving their staff the mechanism to make informed choices about their finances is just really a stitch in time. You are looking at the holistic welfare of your people. You are kind of making the kind of considered decisions that are going to result in people feeling valued and looked after, and that translates into people being loyal and people wanting to stay with the organization and having better productivity, being on time, not just calling in sick spontaneously. Those types of things make a huge difference to the bottom line of any business.
Yeah, and I think stress is something certainly that I've hit on before with financial well-being, and stress is so closely linked. There's that issue of the person who's stressed and who doesn't turn in the morning because they're stressed and overworked and tired, or not overworked but tired, and it's because they've lain awake half the night worrying about all the wrong things, the things that you really, with a bit of financial awareness, a bit of support and understanding about what they can do to improve their financial situation. I mean, I think we talked before, and as I said to you then, for me, the real thing that came home to me was when my husband lost his job and we had worries about how we were going to pay the mortgage, and I went and spoke to the bank. Instead of putting the letter away, I read the letter, had a panic, but at the very bottom it said, you need to give us a ring. So I did. And we had, and they were really, really understanding. But at no point had my employer done anything offer me a little bit of sympathy. And if they had actually, done some financial awareness training, given us some financial awareness support, then potentially I would have known earlier to have that conversation, and I probably could have preempted some of the issues that we had.
Transparency there with your other half, with yourself, with your other significant people in your lives is a huge thing. You know, being open about the issue that you're dealing with. The idea that actually, if you seek help, if you seek a conversation with the bank manager, with the mortgage company, and things like that, they're actually extremely well equipped to give you options that are going to make things better in the short term and in the long term as well. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a specific thing about the British culture, about the notion that things around personal finances are extremely private, and you wouldn't ever dream of having a conversation
Don't talk about your salary.
Yeah, it's just not done. So, you know, there's a sense that actually a lot of the time when people, they're changing the psychology around personal finance, they're all addressing that issue head on. So more open and honest conversations in the household with your other half is a great starting point there. And if something does go wrong, you know, again, acknowledging that actually we didn't have enough money this time around, we had to put X on the credit card. Those types of conversations are great. Those types of conversations are not great when the credit card statement arrives and it's after the fact. You know, that's the difference between feeling like you've got good financial health and good habits versus the opposite.
And I guess from the employer's perspective, if somebody is more in control of their financial well-being, if they feel that they've got some control over it and that they've got some help and support to help them manage it, they're actually less worried about all of that and more able to focus on doing their jobs. I mean, I say to clients, you know, what can you do when you're employing people to get them to focus on delivering what you want them to deliver, and what you, as an employer, what you've got to try and do is remove all the extraneous stuff and make it easy for them to be, you know, focusing on their jobs on a day-to-day basis. The benefit of financial well-being, you know, is that employees feel more in control, and if they feel in control and they feel better able to do their jobs, they're less likely to hike off to somebody else.
You're absolutely right. I mean, what does an employer want? An employer wants a loyal member of staff who's going to meet their productivity targets, who's going to get on with their colleagues at work, who's going to do the job of work that they're hired to do. And ultimately, all of those things can happen when a person doesn't feel like the distractions and the stresses outside of work are impacting their capabilities in work. And that's a thing for every employer to acknowledge head on. Whatever they can do to help their people make informed decisions about their finances outside of work will have a payoff, a benefit inside of work as well. It will make a difference to the bottom line.
And I guess one of the questions that people say to me also, and it's funny, you know, I had almost exactly this question with somebody this morning, is why are we doing it now? Why is it so important now? And I was like, what you mean, apart from the fact that staff are leaving in droves to go and get jobs elsewhere? Why is it such an issue now, the topic of financial awareness?
The easy way to answer that question is, if not now, when? Okay. If you're a proactive and you're an engaged employer, why aren't you doing this already? But, you know, the more detailed answer is connected to the conditions that we're emerging from based on the things that have been going on in the last 2 years. There have been all kinds of things that have upset the apple cart. There have been furlough, there's been contract changes, there's been dips in productivity because of supply chain issues. Everything you can think of that we never thought was going to happen has happened in the last 2 years. The consequence of all of that is that often we're looking at businesses now, the kinds of businesses that we're engaged with, and they're playing catch up. You know, where their productivity and their profitability should have been 2 years ago is the point that they're reaching now, and they've still got to kind of get beyond that curve and get back to where things were or where they wanted them to be. You know, there isn't any going back to the way things were. It's not back to normal now. We've got to figure out what our new normal looks like. Part and parcel of that is organizations acknowledging the importance of things like financial well-being. Now's the time to do it because people have been put through the ringer. People do feel vulnerable, and, you know, the conditions that we're out, all of us in, are making people feel even more vulnerable. So the more you can do to help your people make informed choices, the better. Fundamentally, that's the case. You know, nobody likes to be compelled to make a financial decision. Nobody likes to be compelled towards a new product or service. But ultimately, if people feel like they're making informed choices based on good information from a reliable source, the chances are they won't be scrambling around at the last minute, organizing payday lending or having to rely on family members or friends. Or worse still, a trend that we're noticing more and more is just going without. You know, and that going without notion is something that is becoming so much more of a regular occurrence, and people do manage to go without oftentimes. You know, if the car does require a lot of work because it's not got through its MOT, they'll probably just take it off the road for a little while, which does impact so many other aspects of your life. It's a simple thing, but actually the ability to weather that financial shock, that bump in the road, successfully does have then a consequential kind of knock-on positive effect of being able to still take the kids to the football practice, still be able to do all the social things that you need to do, still be able to go to the big supermarket where you can get the better discounts. Those types
All the
of
other
things
well-being things
matter.
that we
Absolutely
manage,
matter.
the mental health, and I can see how, you know, and I think it's, you know, one of the things that I find a lot now is, you know, there's that kind of concern of we've done everything we can with paying benefits, but actually you haven't, because the one thing that you haven't done is educate your staff how to maximise what you've got. You've given them all of these opportunities, but you haven't taught them how to take advantage of them.
And it's an education piece. It definitely is. I mean, let's face it, personal finances, looking at your bank statements every day, it's not particularly engaging, it's not sexy, it's not interesting. There's nothing about it that makes people leap out of their chair and go, great, I'm going to look at my bank statements today. It doesn't work like that. The more you can do to make this accessible, the more you can do to make it engaging and interesting, and fundamentally at the end, the more you can make people feel like they've done it and they've got a benefit from it, the more it's going to become habit, and the more it's going to improve people's lives. As an employer, there are lots and lots of things that are contributory factors to well-being. You know, the emotional and physical well-being things seem to be really, really well established now. And what organizations like ours are doing is, you know, bringing a spotlight to the idea that financial well-being is overarching. It affects us all. There isn't a single person who's going to be viewing this video who won't be able to acknowledge that actually financial well-being is a thing that does require some attention, that does require some focus. And then when you leave it and just let it drift for a little while, it's probably not going to work out ever so well.
Yeah, it is becoming really, I think, you know, when you go and you meet people and even just meeting somebody in a shop, or everybody is concerned about their financial future and where it's all going. So helping them to have a better perspective of all of that is, you know, giving people a sense of perspective, like I said, a sense of control. All what you're doing then is giving them the ability then to put it to the side when they're working, and enable them to focus on delivering what you need them to deliver, which is what we said, you know, was the main important benefit. And doing it now means the sooner you get it done, the more quickly staff are going to be in a position where they are able to focus on their work and feel engaged with their jobs. And actually, who's going to leave the employer who's just put all of that effort in to keep them?
You're absolutely right. As an employer, as a shop floor manager, as anybody who's got some supervisory kind of oversight of a function within a business, what you want at the end of the day is to be able to say the job is done. What you don't want is to say, well, the job is not done because Steve has got all kinds of distractions and different things going on outside of work. He was 2 hours late, his productivity was down, he had a Barney with one of his, you know, co-workers on the shop floor, and all these different contributory factors that make a difference because the stresses outside of work are impacting somebody's ability to do their job in work as well. And the more that we can do to address those extraneous factors, like you mentioned before, the more beneficial it's going to be for the productivity and the profitability of a business. It's quite simple, really.
Yeah, and I think this whole topic is just such an important one, and one that, you know, we just, you know, whizzed through some of the headline issues behind it. I'm talking to employers who are doing some really good things, and so are you, but I think, you know, there's so much more that employers could do that they don't recognise. And I guess that leads me quite nicely onto the fact that on the 29th of June, Wednesday the 29th of June at 11:45, we're going to be with County Business Shows at the Cheltenham Business Show, and talking about this topic in a lot more detail. We're going to have an employer along, and we're also going to have an engagement specialist along as well to help us manage the conversation. I think it will be a really interesting topic for discussion. I'm looking forward to seeing you there, Sim. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, finally.
Yeah.
And also, I just think they probably better keep us apart during the show so that we don't spend too much time chatting about this topic beforehand. But yeah, thank you ever so much for your time today. Really appreciate that you took the opportunity to talk to me about this and clarify a few things, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Thank you very much.
Great to be here.
Thanks.